advice culture that's all over social media. There's constantly, I've heard Chris Williamson say in Modern Wisdom, talking about the thing isn't doing the thing, reading about the thing isn't doing the thing, thinking about the thing isn't doing the thing, dreaming about the thing isn't doing the thing. Do you think that, like, what can you say about the sort of pitfalls of people falling into advice culture where there's a success bias that happens where when somebody becomes successful, makes a lot of money, does something impactful, everybody wants to come to them and seek their advice? And do you think there's an issue with players who become coaches, who not everyone who can play the game can coach? And not everyone necessarily can know exactly how they became successful. They only know maybe the principles that they applied that sort of helped along the way, but everybody's success story is slightly different. So what are the things that you could say we should watch out for with this culture of advice and how to make it and how to do it that we see all over social media?
So first off, I'm guilty of that. I suffer from the Dunning-Kruger effect, and that is because I made some money, because I'm decent in one thing in the world of marketing, I immediately think, I have insight into every topic. And I'm willing to share my views on things because, I have reach. My advice to young people is I actually think there's a lot, you want to have a kitchen cabinet. And the wonderful thing about these platforms now is you can have Sam Harris on your shoulder. You can really get to know. You mentioned Chris Williams. I think he's great. You can decide, I really want to get in better shape. I'm going to start listening to Dr. Huberman or Peter Attia, and I'm going to try and just get really good at getting in great shape. I can listen to Esther Perel and try and develop a healthier approach to relationships. I think everybody should have a group of people that serves as their sort of informal kitchen cabinet to guide them through stuff. But there's nothing getting around it. An action orientation, nothing replaces an action orientation. And just as important as that action orientation, and now I'm preaching, is the willingness to endure rejection. And what I worry about with all of these platforms and generally just us consuming more media and having this kind of algorithmically, digitally reasonable facsimile of real life where we think, I'm not gambling on Coinbase or Robinhood, I'm learning about investing. I'm not engaging in actual friendship by being outside. I'm on Facebook or I'm on Discord or Reddit. I'm not taking a risk of going up to a strange woman at a social setting or in a bar. I'm just going to engage in porn. And I worry that there's an entire generation of young men who are sequestering from society because they have these low-risk, low-barrier entries into reasonable facsimiles of life that reduce their risk tolerance. And as a result, they're not willing to leave the house. They're not willing to approach strangers. They're not willing to email strangers about a potential job. They're not willing to walk into a store off the street and ask for a job application. They're not willing to try and find a group of friends to do shit with. And also, especially among young men, they feel rejected online in terms of online dating, where women all want the same guy. So the top 10% get 80% of the interest. And I worry that a lot of men aren't developing the callous. I mean, what you have as a stand-up, you have the key to success. And it may not be in comedy. You have developed the ability to endure rejection. You can't get up on open mic night and not have the ability to endure rejection and humiliation. And here's the thing. If you want to score above your weight class economically, professionally, and romantically, you have to get out a big spoon and be willing to eat shit. Because show me someone with a better job than they deserve. Show me someone with more wealth than they deserve. Show me someone with a more interesting, higher character, hotter mate than they are. And I'm going to show you someone who's been rejected by a shit ton of people to get to that job, to get to that economic security, to get to that wonderful mate. And young men aren't developing that endurance. They aren't developing those calluses.
Yeah, I thought about this last night. Actually, this week I headlined at a club in New York City, and I had arrived in New York City from LA, diving deep into the stand-up comedy scene. So there was kind of a moment that I was kind of trying to soak up and relish in a little bit. But I thought about, and you started this episode talking about how I'm rising up on social media and things are everywhere, and I realized that you don't want success too early either, because you will find yourself in a very chaotic place. All that rejection over time builds a foundation. If you look at it the right way, you're learning what doesn't work, what does work, and even the little successes that may disappoint you. You may think you've arrived at something and something will feel a certain way, and then it doesn't. And you're like, well, I thought it was supposed to be like this. It didn't, I went viral, but I didn't get the following to follow that. But all of those things along the way, I find build this very rock solid foundation that when real significant success or moving the needle significantly forward does happen, you're armed and equipped for it. You have calluses, you have, the scars to prove it, and it puts you in a much better position to have sustained success. You don't want
Agreed.
momentary success. So it did occur to me last night that, like, I'm glad in a way you're grateful for. I mean, it's funny because you can't fail indefinitely, because then you're failing indefinitely. But the micro successes, the micro failures along the way do build a solid foundation. And I think a lot of people miss that as long as you make a distinction between practices and principles, where the principles are you're showing up every day, you're doing what's required, and you're putting it in and you're paying attention. Over the long run, you can have a sustained success, hopefully, over time. And that's why it's hard to pinpoint exactly what you did. But maybe there's something to be said about the principles that you apply.
And also, not only develop the skills, it's just so much more rewarding when it's taken some time to get to the peak. Romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 20 minutes for a reason.
Right.
I had a lot of very early success very fast. By the time I was 34, I was, a millionaire, at least on paper. I had started successful e-commerce companies. I was invited to Davos. All these masters of the universe wanted to meet me because supposedly I knew something about the internet. And then the next 10 years were really hard for me. I had a company, my company I started went bankrupt. I got divorced. The great financial recession hit at exactly the right time, just as I started having kids, and I was really financially strained, or less financially well off than I thought I was going to be at a young age, given I was kind of a master of the universe in my early 30s. And having sort of clawed back's the wrong word. I've had a lot of blessings, a lot of wind in my back. But now that I'm in a position again where I have some currency, some influence, some success, some economic security, quite frankly, it's just so much more rewarding because I know how hard it is. And I think the first time I had success, I wanted to credit my grit and my character, but I didn't acknowledge how much luck and the market had played in it. I got coming out of business school in the 90s in the Bay Area, you just got swept up in internet fever, and you just kind of slipped and fell on tens of millions of dollars in venture capital. And a lot of my success was illusory, and I didn't realize it. And so now that I am in a good place, having built something with somebody, having good kids, having, the accoutrements of economic success, it's just really rewarding now. And
does it feel that way too with a public profile that's like becoming more well-known, like later in life in your career? Because even at that time, I feel like now you're on bigger platforms and are broadcast to more people. Like, people talk about fame, so loosely speaking, but getting it a little later, do you feel like that's been a benefit? Are you grateful it didn't happen earlier?
I had some of it very early. I was on the cover of things like Inc. magazine, not a lot of fame, but I would say I have just the right amount of fame. And that is, I don't get bothered. I can still feel sort of anonymous, but on a regular basis, people come up to me and are really nice to me and say nice things. And it's wonderful. And I meet really nice strangers on the street. And it's just incredibly rewarding to have someone come up to you and be nice to you and say they enjoy your work. I'm sure you're starting to get that now, or maybe you've been getting it for a while, but I love it. And I'm also, I don't know if it's insecure, played with the wrong toys or the right toys, but it means a lot to me. It makes me feel good about myself. But at the same time, I don't have enough fame where, I don't feel like I can go anywhere. I have just enough. I wouldn't want any more.
Well, once we hear this podcast, Scott, just you wait.
Just wait, right? Here it comes.
Lines out the door.
Here it comes. But a decent algorithm for happiness in a capitalist society, I wrote a book on happiness, is to be rich and anonymous. Yeah. Because there is a downside to a certain amount of fame. I get attacked a lot on Twitter. There's an industrial complex and incentives, and probably some of it is healthy, in bringing down someone, finding the soft tissue in their argument, embarrassing them, highlighting what an idiot they are. I said on Bill Maher that we should show more forgiveness to people from COVID, whether they were too zealous about lockdowns or not zealous enough, that none of us knew what was going on, and we should be forgiveness. And I just got dragged on the internet by the anti-vaxxers for, no forgiveness, straight to hell for you. You ruin people's lives with your overzealous lockdowns. And that shit is like, it rattles you when literally hundreds of people start sending you vile DMs and emails and...
Yeah, that's new to me. I've gotten that too for other things in the past month, for sure. It especially there's people I followed who I thought were one way, and then I'm like, yo.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I can imagine.
So that stuff rattles you, but that's part of it. I can't imagine what it's like for really famous people. I have some friends who are legitimately famous, and a couple times I was in LA and we were going to Halloween parties, and a couple of my friends come with me, and they're like, "No, there'll be photographers there, and I don't want to drink, and I don't want them to see me." Another friend of mine hosts a TV show, and we were in Vegas together, and he's like, "I can't go to be seen at a casino." I mean, it's just there really is a downside to it. But
I'm agoraphobic.
I have just the right amount of fame. People are super nice to me. Online, less nice, but that's okay. I can deal with that. It's worth it.
But online is like the road rage of the digital world. People are just meaner behind the wheel of their computers.
People's worst instincts.
Yeah. Well, Professor, thank you for shedding light and shedding your ideas and for making the time. And I appreciate the kind words and the support that you're showing me on social media and sharing my work. And I really appreciate the kind words. And just thanks for taking the time to being with us here at Ami's house.
Yeah. Thank you, Ami. And I just want to say, as a young man, 4 kids, in what feels like a healthy relationship, taking risks, doing something that is really fucking hard, and what you do is hard, and doing well at it, and providing for your family, and also having the time to fight for other people that, and causes you believe in. That's exactly what it means to be a man. And like I said, that's why I'm here. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm going to flip the table now.
What
I'm
a
going to
nice
lift it. Masculinity with Scott Galloway. Thank you so much. You can follow Scott Galloway and the Prof G podcast and Pivot with